мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
Putin called this a special military operation, but it's clear this is a full-scale invasion.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Global Chat with your host, Roberto. Today we are featuring our three distinguished guests, Alexei, Felix, and Alexander. Each of our three guests has left their native Russia and now live outside of their own country. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. All right, so I do have a little bit of a cough. If I start coughing, I apologize. And if you have any questions and possibly don't understand me, just tell me to repeat myself, and I'll be happy to. All right, I would like each of you to briefly introduce yourself. I have a little bit of information about each of you, so I might ask you a question or two. Alexei, you want to begin?
Introductions. 3 Russian dissident publishers: Alexei, Felix, and Alexander.
I'm sorry, I have a little cough too. I have media background. I used to work for Russian television, mostly entertainment television. I used to co-own a production company working with Russian television, Russian internet, international TV channels like Discovery Channel. And after that, I started a publishing house in 2015, aiming to produce edgy nonfiction. Couple years later, part of my company was bought by Bookmate, which was a huge digital library, and is a huge digital library now belonging to Yandex. We launched a second publishing house called Popcorn Books. Then Felix joined us as editor-in-chief for Individuum, I think in 2017 or 18. We've been working together actually till the war started. Then Felix left a little earlier. I left in March 2022.
So this is the war in Ukraine in February 2022.
Yeah. I think I left like on the 15th of March or something like that. And went to Belgrade. I came several times back to Moscow because we were, we somehow had to sell our businesses, but we were allowed to sell it, and we got the money. So now I don't have any business in Russia. I don't do publishing anywhere except for Straightforward Foundation.
Did you get in trouble for a book that you published?
There were several stories. I think the biggest of them was the story about this book called Summer in Pioneer Thai, about two gay pioneers.
What was it called?
A Summer in Pioneer Thai, the pioneers, the red tie.
Did it take place in the Soviet era?
Yeah, it takes place in 1986. There's a young high school boy who comes to a pioneer camp, which was very common in Russia, as a place where school children went for summer holidays. And there was another guy who was like a couple years older than him, and he was there as I don't know the English word for like the guy the older guy who looks after the kids.
Like supervisor.
Like a supervisor or something. And this is the story of their love.
And who wrote the book?
Two ladies, one of them Russian, one of them Ukrainian. They now both don't live in Russia also.
And is this considered homosexual propaganda by your government?
The law for against this LGBT propaganda was pretty much pretty much signed because of this book. Because
So it has a
gays
special
and
place.
pioneers is something they couldn't handle yet.
Are you an enemy of the people?
I'm foreign agent.
Foreign agent.
Yeah.
Who do you work for? The British?
I haven't been told yet, but I hope they probably should.
They should let you know.
Yeah.
Used to be the British or the Americans, but I won't second guess your government. Okay, we'll get back to you. Thank you very much. It's interesting. Felix, can you tell us something about yourself, please?
Yeah, so originally I was my first job probably was being a journalist, and I was sticking to it for many years. After a while, it became quite difficult to work as a journalist, especially in anything related to society, you know. Yeah, but as a journalist, it's funny enough that I was working in one magazine together with Shurik, that's short for Alexander, who was working there as an editor and then editor-in-chief. After a while, when all the obstacles were just growing higher and higher, I switched to the book publishing, thanks to Alexei. And yeah, this part of the story he already told. So we were doing the publishing house in Moscow. Yeah, pretty adventurous one as well. And then I moved to Germany in end of 2021. Yeah, and since then I live in Berlin.
Are you the CEO of Straightforward Foundation?
Yeah, I am. Also one of the founders.
That's what my notes say. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's absolutely correct.
Okay. Are you an enemy of the people?
Not yet. Also, I'm not a foreign agent. I'm the only one from us three who is not the foreign agent, because Shurik is a foreign agent as well.
So
But
who do you not work for?
yeah, I don't work for many organizations. Looks like, yeah.
All right. So you're not a foreign agent. Okay. We're joking about an obviously very serious subject. I don't mean to belittle it. It's affecting all of our lives on one level or another. Alexander, I haven't met you before, so nice to meet you. I know you have a lot to do with anti-government material in Russia. Am I saying that correctly? Like Medusa?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Memorial? Can you describe it to us?
yeah, I mean, well, Medusa is the biggest Russian independent news media, but I wouldn't call it specifically anti-government. It's just, it's just a professional news outlet that calls a war a war, and not what the government
Military
orders.
operation.
Yeah. So, so my background is also in journalism. I worked for many years, first as a cultural journalist in this official magazine with Felix. Then at some point, I decided to kind of change my career path. So I went actually to study in the United States as a Fulbright fellow. So I spent 2 years at the Missouri School of Journalism in Missouri, and I kind of got into narrative journalism and what they call long form stories, long reads. And so when I got back to Russia, I went to work for Medusa as a editor, as a deputy editor, and I worked with special correspondents. So I curated basically everything from reports about some protest meetings to in-depth stories investigating some government corruption, stuff like that. Then 5 years ago, I think I left Medusa and did lots of different things. I worked for a museum company. I worked as a basically documentary scriptwriter. We released several successful documentary series about music, sports, social things in Russia. I edited books. I did podcasts. So everything a writer, a journalist, an editor can do, I did almost all of it. Yeah, and then when the war started and I left Russia because it became impossible to work as an honest professional journalist freely. And my wife is also a journalist. She works for the BBC Russian service.
So she also-
You could say that I worked for the British, or at least my family. Then I left, and then at some point we started this thing, and now I'm doing that.
Did she also have to leave the country or not?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think there was no question of both of us leaving, I think, at the time, because we left like 10 days after the war started. In a way, she had to more than me because she was an active journalist at an outlet that, violated a new law that ordered everybody that one should report only what the Ministry of Defense says and nothing else, and everything else is deemed fakes or discreditation of the Russian military. So we both
How
left.
does the BBC? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
How does the BBC continue to have correspondence in Russia? I can't understand that.
Well, they are British citizens, which I think kind of changes the game, but they risk.
I see. Okay.
Everyone who works for the BBC and who is a Russian citizen, they all left. They are all in Riga
Thank you
or
for
in
pointing
London
that out.
or in London, but they have still several correspondents there who are actually British.
Okay.
Which is actually a brave thing to do too, because
Yes,
we all know the story of Evan Gershkovich, who was and is an American citizen and was still put in prison. But yeah, they continue to work, and thank them for that.
Can I just ask you briefly, what is happening with Medusa now?
Well, it is still
It continues.
Yeah, it continues. They're still the biggest Russian independent website. They have, I think, more than 1.5 million subscribers. They actually started publishing books too. So our first book was produced by us, but published by them, because we are not a publishing house. We're a production studio, so to speak. And I mean, of course, it's hard for them because they cannot, at first, when they worked as a normal media, they earn money with advertisements. Now they cannot do that because nobody would put ads in a foreign agent media that's also deemed an undesirable organization. It's actually a felony in Russia. So even if you give an interview to Medusa, theoretically you could be prosecuted. I don't think many people had been so far, but theoretically it's a felony, or at least an administrative violation. But they persevere. They do a great job. They are our partners, and some of them are our friends.
So English as well.
They have an English version. It's not of course as big, and they translate some of their stories, not all of them, but I think they have an English version and also an English newsletter, I think.
And what about Memorial? Did you have a relationship with the group Memorial?
No, we did a book about Memorial, and I was an editor of it. That's all the relationship I have with Memorial. So we have.
We had a call with the two nicest ladies from Memorial like a couple of weeks ago, and we might have a project with them. Just the thing is that memorial now is not really memorial. It's like 100 memorials. It's a lot of small
It's
organizations.
decentralized.
Yeah, spread across all over Europe.
But they're out of Russia?
Yeah.
Outside of Russia?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, you guys each have such interesting backgrounds. It's quite impressive to me. Alexander, my father's from Missouri. Were you in Kansas City?
No, I was in Columbia, so which
Oh,
is
okay.
straight between Kansas City. But of course, I visited Kansas City and St. Louis and other places. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for those responses. They're really interesting and moving. And I appreciate the fact that each of your English is exceptional. So, and my Russian is horrible. So sorry for that in advance. All right. I guess I'll just go to each of you briefly for this question, which is, what is your number one goal?
Question number 1. What's your number 1 goal?
Alexei.
What is my number one goal, like in my whole life, or right now, or
Right now, or whatever,
or
however you want to respond.
I want this war to stop, and I want this war to stop. I want Ukraine to become a normal, peaceful country, and I want Russia to become a normal, peaceful country, and well, somehow work on its mistakes and help Ukraine rebuild, etc., etc., and become a part of come back to the like normal community of peoples and countries, and if there's something I can do about it, that's what I'm trying to, and that's my plan for
Thank
the
you.
foreseeable future.
Thank you. Felix, what is your number one goal?
Yeah, pretty much the same, I think. You know, as a Russian citizen, you always have just simple goals. Like each year, it's not to die, not to get into the jail, and not go bonkers. So I'm pretty sure that I'm successful in those three. And then you can top it up with something more, even more ambitious. In my case, that's gathering of authors in straightforward, you know, going against censorship, just because I think that's a sensitive part of the regime, because you can feel that they react to things that we do, to that other writers are writing about, to the whole situation of I wouldn't call that freedom of speech, but that's what it's left, freedom of speech in Russia. There's some, you know, bits, still some bits left. So with the bans, with the new legislation, with the direct campaigns, smear campaigns, attacks on writers, journalists, and so on, the Kremlin shows how vulnerable actually it is, and how do they react aggressively on just covering some topics. I think covering those topics is the thing of never value, you know. That's my goal, to help as much to get those topics, you know, talked about, written about. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Alexander, same question.
I can just second what my colleagues said. I mean, I don't think I have much to add.
Okay. Well, I know you guys have a pretty strong common purpose, so it makes sense to want to get past the war and past the stage of the way your government is acting right now. I'll ask you more about that later. I want to ask about Alexei Navalny. I happen to be wearing my Rest in Peace Navalny shirt. He was a dissident and a leader of the opposition, the major leader of the opposition in Russia. He was pretty well known around the world. and he was killed or died almost a year ago. Right now, I keep hearing from at least one of my Russian friends all of this infighting about his organization, his legacy, and it really bothers me. So I want your perspectives on Navalny and on his legacy. And I can start again with Alexei. If you don't have anything to say, you can just skip. It's okay.
Well,
Question number 2. All about murdered Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny and his legacy.
well, Alexei. Well, I wasn't actually acquainted with him. I met him a couple of times while we were producing. When his brother went to jail, we commissioned a book to him while he was actually there, and he spent 2 years of his 3.5 year sentence actually writing what was going on around him. And when he was released, we published a book like a couple months after that. And so I saw Alexei when we met his brother, like coming out of the prison in the near Russian town of Oryol. And then I saw him also once on a party where actually Oleg invited me. He was a very nice guy. He was a genius politician. There are a lot of things I don't agree with him, and I didn't agree, and I don't agree still. But I think if anybody fought his way to become like a president of free Russia, well, he should be that guy at least. He should have been that guy at least for 4 years. About his death, well, he was definitely killed in prison. People don't die like that. As everybody says about it, but that's true. This killed a lot of hope in Russian people who actually had some of it left. And concerning his legacy, all of the top management of his organization, they now live in Europe. But the only thing they can do is, they used to be a political organization. Now they have become pretty huge media outlet, but it's still a media outlet. They're like TV celebrities for Russian immigrant society and their Russian viewers in Russia, but still they're not players in the political field. So it's not. It's actually it's more what they're doing now. It's more entertainment than political struggle.
Are you including his wife?
His wife is not a politician yet. She declared that she's, but she's like the bearer of the legacy, and not a politician per se. I hope she might become one. She's a very nice lady, but we need to see what she's capable to do as a standalone person.
Let me ask you a question. I don't know if any or all of you want to address this. This is from an American perspective, obviously. Why the hell did he go back to Russia?
Oh, he could not.
He could not. I mean, we all thought they'd kill him, and they did.
Yeah, but the only way of his well-being was communicating with a very, very huge audience inside Russia, like millions of people inside Russia, and everything he was doing, he was like communicating with those people, and he could not go back.
So if you're outside of Russia, you don't have
he would lose that.
credibility.
He would lose that in a second.
He would lose it. Do you guys lose it?
To me, it would have been much better if he were alive.
Do you guys lose credibility by not being in Russia?
We are not
Slowly,
politicians.
it leaks, but it leaks slower than if we were to be politicians.
If you're a politician, then you just don't have credibility if you're not there.
It's also, you know, you have some, you know, credit, but you cannot leave forever on this credit outside because you just, you know, you have
Well,
to connect it to your voter or pretend that there is a voter or there's some group that supports you. If you just, you know, not visiting your peer group, that's a bit strange for the politician.
I also think we have to consider that when he was coming back, the situation was different. The war changed everything. When he was coming back, I mean, many people expected that he would be put in jail, but I mean, it was a gamble, but I don't think even he thought about it as a life or death gamble. And now, when Russia is at war, I think people understand a little bit more when, you know, opposition politicians leave the country. But then in 2021, I think, yeah, he could not, he wouldn't be able to operate as a politician from the outside. Now you kind of can. I mean, it's still a big question if it makes any difference within Russia, but still, I mean, there is some political field where opposition politicians operate. Outside of Russia, there wasn't any when he actually came back 3 years ago. Yeah.
Are you guys worried that all these accusations of corruption in his organization is somehow blackening his legacy, besmirching his legacy, or not? I mean, I don't understand what it feels like. The forces of Putin and company are trying to besmirch him, but I don't understand all these internal battles. I can't follow it.
I think it's, I mean,
Yeah, I don't.
this is, but because of the way he died, I don't think any of these things can, you know, besmirch his personal legacy. The legacy of what he created, to a certain extent, yes, because I mean, he created this organization. Now this organization is being implicated in kind of not following its principles, stuff like that. But personally, I think, I mean, yeah, he, like, you cannot, I mean, I also, like Alexei said, I also like had a lot of questions towards some of his decisions or positions when he was alive, but the way it ended, I just, you know, and I don't think anybody can seriously, you know, attack Navalny now after the way he fought and died.
He's a martyr of Russian liberalism, and he's so much bigger than anything that he left behind. So he's unreachable.
I appreciate you saying that. I have to turn now to the war in Ukraine, almost 3 years in its tragic consequences. Do you consider this to be a genocide against the Ukrainian people? Who is responsible for the war crimes, for the kidnappings, for the mass graves? And will the war crimes ever be adjudicated? Alexei, I'll start with you.
Question number 3. War and genocide in Ukraine. Mass kidnapping of Ukrainian children. When will these war crimes be adjudicated?
Before you answer, sorry, I just want to say I want to be honest about this. I have a lot of Ukrainian friends. I teach some of them English. Some of them are just friends. Some are colleagues. And many of them were very distrustful of my interviewing you guys just because you're Russian. So, of course, I appreciate your being here and having this opportunity. But there's a tremendous mistrust and feelings that, you know, the Russian dissidents, as I call them, are not real true blue friends of Ukraine, etc. So just to put that out to make it maybe even more difficult to answer the question. How do you feel about the war and the war crimes, and will the war crimes be adjudicated?
Yes, that's well, that's there's a because everybody's actually speaking mostly about war these 3 years. This is a very common vocabulary that everything that is happening now is a horrible aggression of Russia against Ukraine. Crimea belongs to Ukraine. The war crimes. Well, we are trying to do our part, writing and publishing books about war crimes that Russians are or have committed in the Ukraine. So here, the position is very clear.
Is there a book that you're working with? Did you, Alexei, mention?
Yes.
But
Yes.
Yeah, we have a book on specifically on war crimes. It's been written by Anastasia Lotereva, who is an editor and correspondent at the BBC Russian service, actually. Well, it's at the early stages, so I don't think I can delve deeply into it. But one of the things that she is looking into, it's the question of adjudication, as you mentioned, because as we can actually see from the other wars that was recently or not so recently fought, it's still problematic. It's still hard for the international community to put pretty much anybody on trial to get a verdict. These verdicts are sometimes very, strange. It takes decades, these trials. So, I mean, yeah, we don't know if these crimes would ever be adjudicated, if we're honest. But I think it makes it even more important, the work that the journalists are doing, the work that, well, maybe we are doing, by documenting the war crimes, by naming personally people who are responsible for these crimes. I mean, for example, with Bucha, the New York Times did a great investigation. They almost put like they showed the people who committed like specific murders. Medusa actually did a great investigation. They named the people who did specific sexual assaults and also murders. It's all very important work. We don't know how the judicial system and when it will work, but I think yeah, it's still important to
But making it
investigate
as
it.
we can
Yeah.
is our job. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Felix, did you have a response?
Yeah, I agree with what Shurik said wholeheartedly. Yeah, I think so. That documenting is a way of contributing.
And what about the children that have been kidnapped and presumably?
That's also a topic of another
I have a
book
book about that either.
by Straightforward.
Yeah.
It's
And this is actually a unique book because it's been written by together by a Russian journalist and a Ukrainian journalist.
That's what I.
The Russian journalist is actually my wife. I mean, this is kind of a conflict of interest, but I mean, we tried to do the procedure of approve this book as independently and objectively as we could. And the Ukrainian author is her colleague at the BBC. So they're writing it. They tell in kind of a parallel way several stories of, again, specific people, kids, their parents, their carers. Some of the stories actually have happy endings. The children are reunited with their loved ones, even though it's usually a very hard thing to do. Just bureaucratically, Russia doesn't say we won't give your kids back, but it does everything to impede, to make it hard, to make it expensive, to get somebody who for some reason is in Russia to get back to Ukraine or just to their Ukrainian parent. Some of the stories, of course, have are atrocious. For example, just last month, I think there was a story in one of the Russian independent news outlets about a Ukrainian teenager who committed suicide soon after he was transferred to Russia by his foster family and put into a new foster family. And apparently they did not care about him and he just decided to end his life. I think this is like a first, first documented victim of this procedure. And you were asking about genocide. This particular thing, the kidnapping of children, is genocide by the book. Because like the United Nations has its definition of genocide, and kidnapping kids isn't. So that's kind of not something to argue about. It's like literally in the definition. Yeah.
Isn't there a woman politician or somebody who has helped to make those adoptions possible and has been promoting that?
Yeah, she's one of the, so to speak, characters in the book. Her name is Maria Lvova-Belova. I don't think she's as big. I don't think she specifically wanted this to happen. She just happened to be in the position of somebody who had to, be responsible for these kidnappings because she is the presidential representative for the rights of children. I think something like that.
So
yeah, but she actually herself adopted a child from Ukraine, which is, obviously very unethical and criminal, actually.
yeah, talk about conflict of interests.
Yeah.
Do any of you have any idea how many children or people we're talking about?
Well, it's really hard to calculate because
Hundreds?
there was
Thousands?
it's probably I won't say because I think I'm not at liberty and I don't have the expertise. My wife probably could do this, but she is getting our son to sleep right now, so she's kind of busy. But it's really depend on how you define the victims. Do you include, for example, children who were who lived in so-called people's republics,
Occupied.
which were occupied territories, which hadn't been like practically a part of Ukraine for several years. How do you? It's very hard, but it's definitely hundreds, probably thousands. It's really hard to say for me, at least. But it's a lot of people, and with this situation, one child is too many. So
And there's a book about this that's coming.
Yes.
That's coming.
It's coming. I hope it will be finished in the next 6 months. I think they already finished like maybe a third of chapters. So it's
In what
in the
language
works.
will it be? In Russian or in
Well,
English?
all our manuscripts are in Russian, but yeah, but we are more than ready to publish it in English, of course. We are open to offers. The authors are open to offers.
Well, thank you. I really thank you on behalf of all of my Ukrainian people, because they need to know. We need to know what's happening. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your news and perspectives. All right, I'll move on to my next question. What is your perspective on Vladimir Putin? Is he exceptional, or is he a normal part of Russian society? Is democracy in Russia even possible? Who would like to take that one?
Question number 4. all about Vladimir Putin. Is democracy in Russia even remotely possible?
I was first the previous rectangle. You go, guys.
I don't mean to be sarcastic. I really want to know what you think.
I think it's just too big of a question. I mean, and several questions in one. I don't think democracy is impossible in Russia. I'm really like personally against all the kind of genetic theories that Russia for some reason has this inherent tendency towards autocracy. I don't think that's real. As for Putin, I mean, I don't even think it matters really. Like, what do I think about him? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know how to answer that. I think the less I'm thinking of him, maybe the better.
He terrifies me.
Well, that's understandable, but I mean, I don't think for us it's kind of he already kind of changed or ruined our lives to a certain extent, actually several times, because there were steps towards this current catastrophe. There were previous catastrophes. I think nobody here, like neither Alexei, no Felix would say that life was great in Russia in 2020, and then the war started and everything went to shit. No, it was very problematic already. People were being labeled foreign agents left and right. There was no real politics. All the opposition
Media
was
were closing,
suppressed.
people were leaving.
Media
etc.
yeah. So I mean, I don't think I wouldn't say that Putin terrifies me at this point. I'm just sick of him. I would say that. Yeah.
And he's not going anywhere, right?
Absolutely not.
Well, I mean, realistically, I think the only realistic end to his reign is his death. And it depends on, yeah, and he appears to be a really healthy man, unfortunately.
We thought he had blood cancer.
I
Yeah,
don't
we
think
thought he had a
that.
lot of things.
That was
Yeah.
just another
Yeah,
story.
Yeah, many
there's
rumors. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. Any other comments about Putin before we move on?
No, let's not concentrate on him.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't worth it.
Okay. Here's a question. It's not really original. Do you think of yourself as a Russian dissident along the lines of Tsarist and Soviet dissidents, or perhaps dissidents in the Third Reich? And I've heard this, the work that you're doing, passing along information compared to, is it called samizdat? Samizdat?
Yeah.
That people like me who are a little bit older than you guys grew up with learning about and hearing about Solzhenitsyn and the Gulag Archipelago and that sort of thing. In your heads, how are you feeling in comparison with those people that you learned about from years past? Alexei?
Question number 5. What does it mean to be a Russian dissident?
For me, absolutely not. Actually, for me, things that we're doing now, to me, it's pretty much the same thing we were doing in Russia. Just the audience is a little different. I still want these books that we're doing. I don't want this role of Russian dissident that everybody in the West thinks that, well, we need to help those guys. They're like a little challenged, No, I left Russia because I'm still Russian and I will continue being Russian. And I want this dialogue of cultures, people, markets, whatever, be equal. And I want myself and my colleagues and our authors to be equal equal parts of, in our case, book market, and this is market. This is something that works. I want these people to become well-known authors in the world, and not because they they were kicked out of Russia by Putin, but because they are experts, they're thinkers, and the ideas are demandable in the world.
So do you think we in the West are pigeonholing you? Oh, you're the good Russians, you're the dissidents, you're like the ones in the Soviet Union that had to go to jail for all those years and lucky to escape with their lives. You think that's a Western
Well, that's a little
perspective?
bit. That's a little bit what happened. What happened 50 years ago? Because when and that's understandable because not so many people were coming, and most of the people who were coming, they were like gems, right? They were one of a kind. They were like I know, Joseph Brodsky, Stravinsky, or whatever.
You're talking about the ones that came to the West.
Yeah, the ones that came to the West. And everybody wanted to help them and give them job, publish them, etc., because as I understand it, not many people knew that much about the Soviet Union, and these people were like the only voices, and they became like what they became automatically, even though each of them was very talented. Now there's a huge market of people that left Russia and that are writing music, writing texts, or creating art. Not all of that is possible. Not all of that is going to make their way in the West. So I'm talking about market because there's still competition. There will be. It will be hard for Russians, and our goal is like to help the best, pretty much to help the best make it into the big Western world.
So you see yourself as a facilitator?
Yeah, pretty much.
Intellectual culture.
Because I'm not seeing neither myself nor those people going back anytime soon.
Felix, how do you feel if I call you a dissident? My time with the Russian dissidents. Is that a put down? Is that a romanticization? How do you feel about that?
I'm fine with it. I think that all historical generalizations, are losing something because it just was another time, and Soviet regime was quite, actually in many terms, it was more liberal than what we see now with Putin. And he's already, just for example, outplayed Brezhnev with the number of political imprisonments. And actually the only one who did more per year decisions at this level was Stalin. But I think now Putin is merely on the same level, or going to the same direction. So in terms of other ideological, conflicts between dissidents and the Soviet regime is also, that's just a different case that we have now. But the tradition of being against your government when it's completely wrong, I think it's not bound to the USSR or Russian Empire. I think it's universal. I think everyone, if he or she pays attention to what their government is doing, then they could be also dissident in their own countries. So yeah, in this general sense, of course, I am dissident.
If you, God forbid, went back to Russia and were imprisoned, would it be in one of the Soviet or Tsarist prison camps or prisons?
There's nothing, almost nothing left from the Soviet labor camps. They all were demolished and they are not in use anymore. With some Tsarist jails, yeah, there are some jails. I think there still are Like in St. Petersburg and Moscow, I know what Pierre, that they are the same, but mostly there's like new facilities. Nowadays, as from I heard, there's a new issue in front of the jail system that there's previously there were too many prisoners. Now, because of the recruiting and the casualties, there's much less people inside the prison system. So some of the prisons are now meant to be closed, as far as I know.
They
So
recruited prisoners, often violent prisoners, to serve either with Wagner forces or in the General Army.
Yeah, now they
first,
just serving in the
just
general army. They just
yeah,
completely
first it was
adopted.
Wagner, but now anyone like in jail can conscript and go to the Ministry of Defense regular, battalions or something. Yeah.
And that's, I don't know how to ask this. People think that's normal in Russia. Is that just, that's how it goes? That's just one of
We
those
don't
things?
know what people think in Russia. We don't have any credible ways to measure it because for example, a lot of my relatives live in Russia and they do not think it's normal, or like friends, but they are afraid to say anything in public. They are sometimes even afraid to talk about it with their own friends or acquaintances because theoretically it could lead to a trial or a prison because there were instances when somebody was just saying something on the phone on the bus and somebody reported him and I mean probably this person wasn't jailed but the police came to have a talk and stuff like that, and it's all of it is very, very unpleasant. So
It sounds like
I
the
don't
Third
think.
Reich.
Well, I mean, again, like Felix said, I'm not a big fan of direct historical comparisons, and
Well, I
but
saw all
we
these
don't really know
examples.
what people think in Russia. My only thing, my only message here is that we don't really know what's the public opinion. I don't think most people would agree that it's a good thing to let murderers and sexual criminals out to go to war and then go free. I'm pretty sure if you asked honestly, most Russians would say that that's not a good idea.
Is it true they had protesters holding up signs that said nothing, that were just plain white signs
Yeah,
that were
that's true.
arrested
Yeah.
or in trouble? So that just
Yeah,
seemed to
they
me,
definitely were detained. I'm not
uh,
sure about arrested, but I mean, I'm pretty sure some of them were slapped with like 15 days in jail or something like that.
I
Probably.
mean, that
Uh,
speaks to a pretty high level of repression if a blanket
yes,
sign
it's a
dictates
pretty high
you
level of
hang.
repression. That's true. That's why we are not there. That's one of the reasons. Yeah.
Alexander, do you not like being considered to be a Russian dissident?
I honestly don't care. I mean, because that's not something I can influence, kind of. I mean, I can influence it when I talk about myself, and I wouldn't call myself a dissident. I would call myself, a professional, a journalist, an editor, whatever. But if I mean, it's like with the word oligarchs, everybody uses the word oligarchs towards Russian, rich billionaires, but I don't think it's a correct usage because oligarchs is somebody who can influence the power, and very rarely these rich people in Russia can influence the power. Actually, like anybody, any of them can lose all their money in one instance if Putin decides that. But you cannot do anything about it when it's written, Financial Times and the New Yorker and New York Times and everywhere when they call like any extra rich Russian an oligarch. Well, that's how it goes. I mean,
Well, now
I don't
we're
really.
taking on that term now in America because we have Elon
Yeah.
Musk and we
Well,
have
I think Elon Musk is much more of an oligarch than, for example, I
he's
don't know, like
he's the oligarch. He's the
yeah,
oligarch, and
because he can really influence
Well, he
the
influences.
power.
Yeah, it looks like he
Yeah.
can influence.
it looks like he
Yeah.
can influence until they have a breakup. You know, great love affairs have major breakups.
That's true.
So we can only hope. This is a
Yeah, but
question
usually,
really.
in those cases, usually the oligarchs, as the Russian example shows, and if we can use this example, but it's usually it's that way that those oligarchs are getting eaten by those who are in power because first they're used and then they start to pose any real danger to the national leader. That's the story of Khodorkovsky, for example. And then they got, they're being smashed. So we'll see.
Yeah. If you play with sharks, you better be
Yeah.
careful. Yeah. This question is really for me. It's about POWs. So I belong to Ukrainian POWs specifically. I belong to a group that is trying to correspond with Ukrainian POWs. I have 4 names right now. I've been writing one of them. His name is Maxim. He's been in jail, or I don't know what you call it, detention, for about 2 years. Some of them are given long sentences. I don't quite understand that and which ones get the longest sentences and where they are kept and if and when they're allowed correspondence or packages or the ability to write outside, send letters to people. Do any of you know anything about the situation of Ukrainian POWs in Russia, which, according to Zelensky, numbers something like 8,000, mostly men?
Question number 6. Ukrainian POWs, where the hell are they? And can we contact them?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I didn't know that there is a project like that people from the United States write letters
It's
to
a
the
small
Ukrainian
project.
prisoners of war. That's very nice and great. And so you are sure that they receive these letters and they respond to you, or not really?
In my little group, this is just like a
Mhm.
subgroup of the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
project. I'm not told everything about it, just what they feel they
Okay.
need to tell us. As far as I know, the group is maybe under 100 targeted POWs. They have the names and the ages and maybe how long they've been POWs.
Mm-hmm.
And of that small targeted little 80 plus group, so far I only know of one example where the prisoner has been able to get a letter out.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense because
My prisoner has not. So we
yeah, I
don't
think
know.
Russia is very secretive about its prisoners of war because, for example, Ukraine
And
is
of
quite
course,
open.
and of their whereabouts, of course.
Yeah, of their whereabouts.
And the mail might reveal it. Yeah.
There are like investigations about secret prisons for Ukrainians, not even like prisoners of war, but just Ukrainians who happen to be on Russian territory or who happen to be on occupied territories and were said something against the Russian government or whatever. We don't know much about these people, unfortunately.
Where do
And
you
I
think
think
they would? Where do you think they would be held?
I I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, they can
They
be
can build
held. I
it.
don't know.
They can build a huge jail just in a plain field, like in 3 days. It's
I mean, are they in
Yeah, or they
Siberia?
can put
Are
them
they in
in
Are
an
they in
abandoned
some
like.
horrible camps like Navalny was? Are they in these empty jails that they took all the prisoners out to fight on the front?
Well, probably. I mean, I think if they were keeping Ukrainian prisoners of war in like specifically horrible conditions, we would have known about it by now because there are exchanges. They happen quite often, and people who are exchanged they can talk. And I don't think there have been, at least I haven't seen a lot of stories about like specifically horrible conditions. But you have to understand that any kind of detention in Russia, and not only in Russia, I think it's the same in the United States, it's a horrible experience. It's not about, becoming a better man in prison. It's about, being like punished and humiliated and all kinds of things. So
We have heard
yeah,
incidents of torture and threats
yeah,
to be
of course,
killed,
yeah.
and sometimes being killed.
Yeah,
I have heard that.
there are
Isolated cases.
recorded instances of, people just who said, I'm ready to surrender, and they were just being killed. And it's a war crime also. And, let's hope that these criminals will be named and prosecuted too.
But you guys don't know any more specific information than that. Okay,
Mm,
well,
I
if any of
don't,
you
yeah.
find out, please let me know, because I'm really curious about it, and I can't find much information. All right, here's another question about Russia. How do anti-Semitism and homophobia play out in Putin's Russia? I know that's a really broad question,
Yeah, quite differently, I guess.
quite differently.
Question number 7. How do anti-Semitism and homophobia play out in Putin's Russia?
Yeah, I think there's much less anti-Semitism in Russia in Putin times than it was in the Soviet Union, probably because most of the oligarchs are Jewish, at least.
Mhm.
But at the same time, homophobia is aggressively weaponized, and right now, LGBT is proclaimed an extremist organization
It's
in
proclaimed
Russia.
organization, and the
Yeah,
organization is proclaimed to be extremist. Yeah.
yeah, like LGBT movement, which does not exist as an entity, obviously, is proclaimed an extremist organization. There is no such thing as organization called. But yeah, and so basically, homophobia is being aggressively weaponized in Russia as a part of its proclaimed fight for traditional values, so-called. And they have all kinds of raids against gay clubs, gay parties. You basically cannot be publicly gay in Russia. That's dangerous.
You
You can
have
write
gay,
about it. You can shoot movies
you
about it.
have gay clubs. You have gay clubs in St. Petersburg.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they do, but they just underground. I'm pretty sure there are gay clubs in, North
There
Korea
are gay
or
clubs everywhere.
everywhere, because there are gay people everywhere. So, but they are, I mean, they were more or less open up until I think several years ago, up until the war maybe. Now it's underground, and they're being raided. People are being, detained, beaten, humiliated, all kinds of things. So yeah, that's just a part of Putin's, like pseudo-conservative ideology, so to speak. Yeah.
Because we understood that back in the 90s, there was a kind of active budding gay movement, LGBT movement in Russia. I even saw a film about it.
Yeah,
And
sure. It was much more, vital before, but there's still, I think, this is the anti-LGBT movement. It's more of a old people game. I mean, attitude on the society, but younger generation, I think they're pretty much sexual free. They're not that hypocritical about it. But of course, what comes to the legal activities such as opening a club or running a publishing house or making gay queer movies, that's impossible now, because for those activities you still have to, have some papers, put something in the public. That's can be really troublesome.
But the other part of the question was about anti-Semitism. You don't think that Putin uses anti-Semitism, or that that's a part of his way of being? I thought that in a lot of his accusations, he was using anti-Semitic slurs against people, against leaders from other countries. Is that not the
I think
case?
as a populist, as one of the
Felix?
Felix, I think
sorry.
I think we're having an
Yeah. I
issue
was
with-
saying that as a radical populist, he will use any kind of rhetoric which can inflame the public, and anti-Semitism is one of them, but not the major one in his repertoire.
No, I don't think Putin is a genuine anti-Semite. He was brought up at the times when anti-Semitism was state policy, and all these little jokes about Jews that he does in public. It's actually what it used to be appropriate in the Soviet society in the 60s and 70s when he grew up. I think this is where he gets it, not because he's genuinely anti-Semitic.
What kind of jokes does he make?
It's not actually a joke. It's just when he says I don't know. He was talking about I don't remember about this guy called Chubais. He said or maybe Volosh, who's the owner of Yandex. He said something. Well, he lives in Israel and with a wink or something. It's not even a joke. It's just some like a code that we understand. But with him, I really don't think it's genuine anti-Semitism.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I'm getting closer to the end. Trump was reelected, in case you haven't heard. We're facing his second term with more than a little trepidation for people like myself. Country's very divided. And we have all sorts of fears about what's happening. But at any rate, in relation to this interview, I'm going to ask what you guys think about Trump's re-election to a second term and his relationship with Putin. This is constantly a source of speculation about how is he going to deal with Putin, or how is Putin going to deal with Trump? What is your perspectives on that?
Question number 8. Are Trump and Putin still an item?
This is going to be another speculation in a way, but the only thing I'm pretty sure of Trump is not going to be an easy walk for the Russians, and he's very pragmatic. He wants results and he wants them now, and I don't think he has any relationship with Putin. Actually, it's convenient for him to say so right now, but because he wants to, he wants to butter him up or something before they talk. But it looks like Trump wants this to go away somehow, because he has bigger things on his plate.
The war. He wants the war to go away.
Yeah, this war. Yeah, I think for him, things happening in Israel are much more important. In Israel, Iran, Saudi Arabia, etc., etc.
China.
But this is just an obstacle that he wants out.
Not to mention the building that they're planning on doing, a building in Belgrade.
Yeah, probably. They might have direct flights to Greenland from Belgrade then. Soon.
Felix, do you have any opinions about the relationship between Putin and Trump?
No, I think they now will exchange, some diplomatic moves and see like how is Putin still backed up by China, or what's the game now? I think Trump is now winning in terms of weaponization of the radical, like traditionalistic rhetoric. It's before his election, Putin could use an image of the person who is uniting the rest of the world against those gay satanism and drug-influenced hordes of darkness. But now the Trump is against them. So I think they should first discuss which role should Putin play in this duo, because I don't get it. If they combine forces, then Putin should switch to some kind of new ideology. But all the ideology that now Russia has is like, we are not West.
We're
We are
anti-Western.
opposed. Yeah, we're opposed to West. When there is such a change in the public ideology, then I think that might be interesting, what will develop.
How about you, Alexander?
I don't think I have much to add. Actually, I mean, I think I will have to go pretty soon because it's pretty late here in Riga, and you know,
Okay.
I have to kind of shut up because our apartment is not that big. So, yeah.
So maybe I can ask one more question. Can you handle one more? The last one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
one more.
sure,
Okay.
sure.
So I'll start with Alexander in case he's got to leave us at any time. I'm sorry I've taken this much time, and I appreciate the time you've given. To the extent that you wish to share, how have all these dramatic events that we've been talking about affected your personal life? And that's obviously a very personal question.
Question number 9. How have all of these dramatic events affected your personal life?
Well, I mean, I can start because again, I have to go. But I mean, it's pretty obvious. We had a home in Moscow. We had some kind of plan for future life. It all ended quite quickly after the start of the war. It pretty quickly became evident that we cannot live there anymore. So we lost our home. We had to establish a new one. We like it, but still, I mean, it's a pretty big change. Of course, I understand that, you know, many people affected by this war are going through way more difficult things. But talking with me personally, like my whole life has changed, and I mean, physically, like the place I live in, you know, the country I live in, the culture I live in. So yeah, it's quite it's quite simple to answer. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Felix?
Yeah, I mean, it's also changed in so many ways. I don't know, but it also was a kind of quick progression of events, because before that we were very much immersed into this situation with pandemics, and it's also started to changing the life rapidly. And since then, I think so already for 5 years, there is a feeling that the world just got unhinged. And the war was one of the events in the succession, but huge and impactful one, but not the first. So yeah, for me, it was like that.
Okay, thank you. Alexei, ask you last. This has all affected your personal life.
Well, besides of all of this being horrible for me, I'm 44 years old. I think it helped me get rid of midlife crisis, because if I ever wanted to, to settle down and calm down a little bit and think that I'm a successful businessman and etc. etc. Well, I don't do that. I started a new life, and it makes me feel much younger than I actually have.
There's always a silver lining.
Yeah.
Okay, I've taken a lot of your time. Alexei, Felix, and Alexander, thank you all so much for joining us
Thank you.
today, finding time in your busy
Thank you,
schedule.
Roberto.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Roberto.
Thank you,
This is
Roberto.
Roberto for Global Chat saying goodbye for now. Thank you for listening. Find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and ciao.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you guys
Bye.
again.